العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. تجي سجون. طيب، باب التيمم. باب التيمم. When the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi in the beginning, if you look right back to the beginning, he said, وَالطَّهَارَةُ النَّوْعَانِ, right at the beginning. طيب, anyone who's got the Arabic matan, where the Shaykh starts, where he says, وَالشُّرُوطُ الصَّلَاةِ وَأَمَّا شُرُوطُ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَهَا شُرُوطٌ تَتَقَدَّمُ carry on. He says, وَالطَّهَارَةُ النَّوْعَانِ, and tahara is of two types. He said in that, back there, he said, الطَّهَارَةُ بِالْمَاءِ وَهِيَ الْأَصْلِ. At-tahara, purification with water. وَهِيَ الْأَصْلِ, and that is the asl. So he said that it's of two types. Then he mentioned the first type, which was what? Water, sir? Now, he's going on to the second type. He starts with saying what? وَهُوَ النَّوْعُ الثَّانِي مِنَ الطَّهَارَةِ. It is the second type of tahara. طيب. وَهُوَ بَدَلٌ عَنِ الْمَاءِ. Tayamum is a type of purification. The asl is that a person purifies himself with water. Lakin because our sharia is complete and it's befitting and suitable for any era, any time frame, and in any location, in any place, then it takes into consideration that there are times that a person cannot use water. In this chapter we shall see what tayammum is and when a person can perform a tayammum and how a person should perform a tayammum. وهو النوع الثاني من الطهارة is the second type of طهارة. وهو بدل عن الماء, and it is a badal, a substitute for water. وهو بدل عن الماء is a substitute for water. It means that anything that you would use water for with regards to purification, then you can also use al-ghusl. So a tayammum is badal, is a substitute for water. If a person, for example, if you're at school and a teacher calls in ill, they get what? A supply teacher, sir? That supply teacher does what? Everything that the teacher was required to do, sir? In all of the ahkam. They teach the same curriculum. They would go on break just like the other person would go on break. They would get paid just like the other teacher would get paid. They'd have to keep the class quiet just like the other teacher would keep the class quiet. So the asl, the origin, is the normal teacher. The badal is who? The supply teacher, sah? You've imagined it now, sah? You can picture what I'm talking about, sah? That is exactly the same situation for the water. And tayammum. Tayammum does everything that water does. Everything that you would use to purify yourself for water, yani wudu and so on, you can do exactly the same thing for tahara. And it shows the easiness of our sharia. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Also, the qa'idah, from the qawaid al-kubra, khamsa, from the 5 major principles, is what? Al-mashaqqatu تجلب التيسير. مشقة, hardship or difficulty, brings about ease. For example, a traveler, they may find it difficult to fast. They may find it difficult to pray 4 rak'at and to pray every salah at its time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated that this musafir, or the person who's traveling, can break their fast, i.e. not fast. And they can combine the salah. And they can what? Also shorten the salah. So when everything that you would do for water, for example, if a person performs wudu for dhuhr, and then the time for asr comes or enters, and they've still got that wudu, is it wajib for them to perform wudu? La. Likewise, if a person performs tayammum at the time of dhuhr, and they, obviously for a reason, for example, they can't find water, we shall see the reasons. They can't find water. They perform tayammum for Salat al-Dhuhr. Salat al-Asr comes. The time of Salat al-Asr comes. And he doesn't have water, and he hasn't broken his wudu, or he hasn't fallen into any of the nullifiers of wudu. He performed tayammum for what salah? Dhuhr. Now the time of Asr has entered. He does not need to perform what? He does not need to perform tayammum again. Why not? He's still got it. Why? Because if he was on wudu, you would not need to renew your wudu. طيب. Likewise, for wudu, is it a condition that the salah enters, the time of the salah, for a person to perform wudu? Like for example, say Salatul Dhuhr comes in at 12:30, or starts at 12:30. If you perform wudu at 12 o'clock, and you've still got your wudu at 12:30, can you pray dhuhr with that? Why is that? Because the entering of the time isn't a condition for wudu. You can perform wudu any time, and if it just so happens that there's a salah at that time, then you can perform it. Or if you've got wudu at the time of the next salah, then you can pray that salah without having to what? Renew your wudu. Likewise with tayammum. You can perform tayammum now. You can perform tayammum now. For example, you want to pray Salat al-Duha, and it's about 11:50, 12:50, 11:50, so or 12ish, and you perform tayammum. You prayed Salat al-Duha, and then the time of dhuhr comes in. Can you perform salah with that tayammum? Na'am, you can. Why? It's the same as water. If you used to perform wudu with water, would you need to perform salat wudu again? Have I confused you? For example, if a person performs wudu at 11:45 and salah dhuhr enters at 12:30, for those 45 minutes they've kept their wudu, they haven't broken their wudu. After 12:30, when the time of the salah has entered, can they perform wudu? Do they have to perform wudu? Why? Because they still have their wudu. Likewise, if a person does tayammum for Salatul Duha, for example, or because he wants to pray sunnah, and they perform tayammum, once the time for dhuhr comes in, if they've still got their tayammum, they haven't broken their wudu, and they haven't fallen into any of the things that nullify wudu, they can pray with that same tayammum. But obviously, at the time of salah, if the person finds water, then we can't say your wudu is, your tayammum, you still got tayammum that you performed earlier on. La. We shall see what nullifies a tayammum. Also, if a person performs salah comes, dhuhr is between, for example, 12:30 to 2:30. At 12:30, 12:45, a person wanted to pray Salatul Dhuhr. They have no water. They're in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And then they perform tayammum. they perform Tayamum, and then they pray Salatul al-Dhuhr. They carry on with their journey, and then they come into a small village, or they come back home where they were, so on. Or they found water at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. Meaning the time of that specific salah that they prayed before, that they prayed earlier on, is still the same time, and it's still within the same time of that same salah. Do they need to perform the salah again? Because now they've performed, or now that they've found water, do they need to perform wudu with water and then repeat the salah? So this question is to the sisters. Concentrate and answer. A person, and Salatul Dhuhr alam, for example, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m, that's the time of Dhuhr. Imagine, that's the time of Dhuhr. 12 to 3. A person cannot find water. Ali cannot find water. At 12:30, he does Tayamum, because he can't find water, he's in the middle of nowhere. He's traveling and he can't find water. And he wants to pray Dhuhr. And he performs Tayamum. We shall see how to perform Tayamum in a bit. طيب. He prays. He comes back home about 2:30. Still within the time of what? Salatul Dhuhr, sah? The salah that he'd already prayed. And now he's got access to water and he's able to perform wudu. Should we tell him to perform wudu and repeat the salah? Or should we tell him you've already prayed? Go on. Huh? He's already prayed it. Like he's got water now. Ahsanti. Tayammum takes the ruling of wudu. And it is a badal, it is a substitute for it. So if a person already prayed dhuhr, with that tayammum, they do not need to repeat the salah, even though it's within its time frame, within the time of the salah. طيب. What if a person finds water while they're in salah? He knows, say that again? Meaning, he's, for example, he's on a residential and he's just outside in the suburbs of London and the water cuts out. Or he's in a village and the water cuts out. And he decides to pray the salah. And the time of the salah has come in obviously already. And he wants to perform wudu. He wants to perform tayammum and pray his salah. He says, Allahu Akbar, first rak'ah, second rak'ah. While he's in the third rak'ah, he can hear the jiggling of the camels. And he hears them coming into his area, or the area that he's living in. Or he can hear the running of the taps. And he's in the salah. Because there was a strike on water. It's one of two. Either he leaves the salah, he gets out of the salah, and he performs wudu, and he comes, prays the salah again, or he carries on with the salah. What should he do? Carry on. Tayyib. Who says carry on? Put your hand up. From the sisters as well. They're confused. Who says who says carry on? Who says he should leave the salah? He should leave the salah. That's the correct answer. Subhanallah, ijma' amongst you brothers that he doesn't need to repeat this. He carries on with the salah. He leaves the salah. He leaves the salah because the excuse has now been lifted. There's no excuse. And he's within the ibadah. Just to relax you guys, there's a difference of opinion in it. So some scholars say, he can carry on. He can carry on because he prayed upon the asl that he didn't have water and he started his ibadah. And it's not from the attributes of the believers to leave their ibadah without fully completing it, to do ibtal of their ibadah. A person should just leave the salah, it's not going to harm him, because the shaitan is always going to be whispering to him, leave the salah, perform wudu, and then continue with your salah. Pray from the beginning. especially if it's within the time of the salah. طيب. And the evidence for that is فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. In the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we've talked about earlier on, if a person is on janaba, answers the call of nature and so on, and then they don't perform wudu, they can't find water, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, you cannot find water, فَتَيَمَّمُوا, then perform tayammum. Also, from the evidence is there was a man at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. While the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions were praying, he prayed right at the back. He prayed at the back. And then the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him what happened to him, why he wasn't praying with the people. يعني ما منعك يا فلان أن تصلي مع الناس? What prevented you from praying with the people? And he mentioned to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he had janaba. He had janaba. ولا ماء, and I did not have water. And I required a ghusl and I did not have water. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, عليك بالسعيد فإنه يكفيك. Use sand or use turab, dry earth or earth, it is enough for you. And it just to perform the tayammum, and you can carry on with your salah. So that's from the evidence of tayammum. طيب. Now we're going to go into when can you perform tayammum, reasons for performing tayammum. The Shaykh says إذا تعذر استعمال الماء لأعضاء الطهارة. If a person isn't able to wash the limbs that they're meant to wash during طهارة, أو بعضها لعدمه, أو بعضها, or some of these limbs they're not able to wash, what should they do? لعدمه أي لعدم الماء, due to them not having water. So the first reason is, or the first reason, or the sabab for performing wudu, for performing tayammum, is that a person doesn't have water. طبعا when it comes to water, a person should always look for water. Always look for water. It's not enough, for example, if a person is in an institute or in a certain location, in a university or so, and he doesn't know where the bathroom is, he shouldn't say, there's no water here. Or I don't know where the water is, so I'm going to perform tayammum, because I don't know where the water is. Or if a person is in a park, and obviously in the park, there may not be toilet facilities. They can't say, I'm in the middle of the park now, so I need to perform tayammum. La. They need to go out and look for water. Go to a local bathroom, local shop, or even go home and perform wudu. So the first thing is that a person should look for wudu, or look for water. Like, if they can't find wudu, then they are able to perform tayammum. Or they can find water, like it's not enough for them. It's enough for him to, or for her to only drink. In that case, they can also make tayammum. So if a person's got a certain amount of water, this 1 litre or so, 500 ml, and they need it to either drink or perform wudu, we'll say to him, leave that for drinking and perform a tayammum. And he comes under this person who doesn't have water, because it is not sufficient. The water that he has isn't sufficient. طيب. What about if a person finds water, but it's only enough for him to, so he's got enough, it's not for drinking, like he's got enough water to wash his face and his arms, or he's got enough water to drink, enough water to wash his face. What should he do? He doesn't have enough water to wash his feet or his arms. And he's only got enough water to wash parts of the limbs that he's meant to wash for wudu. What should they do? Tayamum. But he's got water. He's got water, he can wash his face, he can wash his hands. Even if he washes one time, it's only enough for him, for his face and maybe his right arm or his left arm as well. Hassan, it's not enough for him to complete his wudu. Therefore he has to perform tayammum. Why did I mention that? Because some scholars say that you wash the limbs that you can and then perform tayammum. Like, and that goes against the ayah. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً. This person hasn't found enough water to complete his wudu. Therefore it's as if he hasn't found wudu. Or he hasn't found water. طيب. أو خوف ضرر باستعماله. The second reason is that he fears if he uses this water, or if he uses the water that he has, then it will cause him harm. Then it will cause him harm. And that can be by way of, for example, if a person has a wound, and if he uses the water, it could increase in his pain, or it could increase the pain or the illness that he has, to the extent that he may fear for his life. Or it could delay the recovery process. It could delay the recovery process. Or by him using it, he suffers extreme pain. In either of these circumstances, a person is allowed to perform tayammum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Do not kill yourselves and do not throw yourselves into destruction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever merciful unto you, upon you. Also, there's a hadith, even if a person fears the water due to extreme coldness, it's really cold, and he knows that if he uses it, he's going to be harmed by it, then they can perform tayammum, and that's enough for them, and they do not need to repeat that same salah. And that actually happened at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amr bin As radiallahu anhu was sent by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, him and several companions, and he was the leader of the imam of that little group, the army that went out, or that group. He was the leader, and then he could not find water. Fell into janaba, I believe it was, and he couldn't find water. Therefore the Messenger therefore he performed tayammum. And then when it got back to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Messenger did not tell him to repeat his salah that he'd prayed. Therefore, if a person fears the use of water, he can use or perform tayammum. So if a person believes that by washing his limbs, that it's either going to increase in his illness, or delay his recovery, or even increase him in a lot of pain. Although it's not like the first type, like it can cause him a lot of pain, and then the pain disappears, like it causes him pain. In all of those instances, it is permissible to perform tayammum. What if a person is in the middle of nowhere and they can find shops, but they can't find free water? There's no bathrooms around. They can find water. They can buy water from the shop. Yeah. They should buy it. Why is that? لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah doesn't burden the soul above what it can handle. What should he do? He's in the middle of Hyde Park. There are little shops around, but there are no toilet facilities, free water. What should he do? Make tayammum. He has to? The reason I mentioned the bathroom, because the water in the bathroom is free. Huh? What, for him to go buy it from the shop? Sah. He has to go buy it from the shop. He's got water, he has to go buy it from the shop. Unless obviously it's extortion. For example, he says to buy this bottle of oil, it's going to be £8.50. Unless it's extremely expensive and ridiculously expensive, then he should buy that water and perform water or ghusl with it. Especially bearing in mind that no one asks him to go to the park. Huh? Sahih, but still. Huh? It's true, he knows, a person knows what a burden, but you're right, a person knows what is a burden on him. If, for example, if a person doesn't have money on him, everything's going to be a burden. Even the 10p sweet is going to be a burden on him, if he doesn't have any cash on him. But, so if he's got enough, and it's not going to be a burden on him, then he should buy it. Like, if he's got no money, he hasn't got change on him, cash on him, then obviously he can't go steal from someone else and then go buy water. Like, what he should do is just perform Tayamum in that case. Or if he's in the park, he can't perform Tayamum anyway. If he's in the park, he can't perform Tayamum. Some people do that when they're playing football. Yeah, but it's worth. Yeah, like if you told them to stay in the park at the time of Salah. It's earth they can, if they can't find water. Because what did we say? That from the reasons of performing Tayammum is that a person doesn't have water. We mentioned that a person should go out of his way to find water. So if he's got, for example, if he can find water at home and he lives 10 minutes away from the park, he can't perform Tayammum because it's going to disturb him. He needs to go back home and make wudu. Or use the facilities in the park, the bathroom facilities. Like, he can't perform Tayammum in the park. And that's a mistake that a lot of brothers make. Allahu Akbar, straight away they just and then they carry on praying, carry on with their game of football. Salah comes before that. If as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, if the salah is more virtuous than the sleep, and sleep is something that everyone needs, then for mabal, what is the situation with football, which isn't a complete necessity? So these are the situations where a person is required, or a person can perform tayammum. Now, if a person doesn't have water completely, or if they have water to perform some parts of the body, to perform wudu on some parts of the body, some parts of the limbs, or they have water but it's not enough for them to drink, it's only enough for them to drink, or fourthly, they fear for their life, or they fear for the pain or increase or the speed recovery process being delayed by using tayammum. In these circumstances, a person can perform tayammum. طيب. The Shaykh says فيقوم التراب مقام الماء. فيقوم التراب, and turab or dust, يقوم مقام الماء, is a direct substitute for water, and we've already obviously discussed this issue. The Shaykh now is going to mention how a person should perform wudu, tayammum. بأن ينوي رفع ما عليه من الأحداث. Firstly, he has the correct intention of removing impurities that are on him. طيب. So, final issue before going on to how to perform wudu. If a person requires ghusl, falling into janaba, and he requires ghusl Like, he doesn't have water. Performs Tayamum, sah? And he can carry on with his salah. طيب. What about if he finds water? Does he have to, number one, perform ghusl like he was supposed to? Or is that tayammum enough for him, and it's enough ghusl for him, so he doesn't need to repeat, or he doesn't need to perform ghusl? And a person is on janaba, and they can't find water, he does tayammum, sah? Prays the salah. Few hours later, they find water. We've already established that they don't need to pray the salah again, right? That's one side. Does he have to perform ghusl, the ghusl that he was meant to perform earlier on? Or is it enough that he's done the best at his time? فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. He feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of his ability at the time when he required ghusl, and he couldn't find water, therefore performed tayammum. So that is enough for the janaba or the ghusl that he required. Meaning we don't tell him to, or he doesn't need to perform ghusl. Which one?
If he's found water, then he should make ghusl. Because then that became available to him after.
Hmm?
There's no excuse after.
Sorry.
You say ghusl, yeah? It depends on where you are, right?
Where you are?
Yeah.
If you're in East, yani, it's wajib. If you're in West, it's not wajib.
Yeah.
Nah, go on. I'm joking, sorry.
If he has to do ghusl and he finds water, he have to do ghusl in the park, eh?
No, I can't.
So,
Yeah, but he doesn't have to stay in the park though, does he? He can go home. Sah? He can go home. Even if he does find water. He doesn't need to repeat the salah, lakin he still needs to perform ghusl. Whether he's in a park or not, it doesn't matter. Because he can leave the park. He can leave the park, go home, have a ghusl with the water that he's found, and then go back to the park. Lakin ala kulli hal, if a person does find water and he required ghusl once upon a time and then he performed tayammum, he will still need to perform ghusl. He will still need to perform ghusl. Because the hadath is still with him. The major hadath is still with him. That tayammum only made it permissible for him to pray, because salah has its time. Likewise, if a person, say for example Salatul Dhuhr is from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:20, he doesn't have water, he's traveling, and he doesn't have water. Like he knows, or the person knows, by the time they get to their village, or they get to their city, or their place of residence, they know there's water there. What should they do? Should they delay the salah and wash the limbs they're meant to perform wudu? Should they delay the salah so they can perform wudu at their home, which they know there'll be water, they'll find water? Or should they perform tayammum ala dul and then pray? In terms of which is better, not which is permissible for him, like in which is better? Delaying the salah, and then when they get to their destination, as long as the time of salah will not exit and it's still the time of salah, then it's better for them to delay the salah and pray over there in their destination, especially knowing that there's going to be water there. It's the same as if a person was to be praying on a plane, for example. They can't literally, they can't stand because they're not allowed to stand, for example. So they need to pray sitting down. So if they pray the salah now, they can only pray sitting down. Like if they delay the salah for 1 hour, which is still within the time of the salah, they can pray standing with coming with praying all of, performing all of the pillars of the salah? Which is better? Delaying the salah, so that a person can perform the salah in a complete while being fulfilling all of the requirements of the actual salah. طيب. That is how fiqh is. Every time you remember, that's how fiqh is. Mas'ala ba'da mas'ala ba'da. What if, what if, what if? If you look in the fuqaha, books of the fuqaha, the kutub, you'll find the issues that we're mentioning now, you find them exactly written like that. Situation after situation after situation. If this happens, if this happens, if this happens. Naam. طيب, the Shaykh al-Lan is going to describe the way of performing tayammum. بأن ينوي رفع ما عليه من الحدث أو من الأحداث. We already discussed that the person has the intention of removing these أحداث. ثم يقول, and then he says, بسم الله. ثم يضرب, so having the intention, saying Bismillah, striking the two hands on clean earth, and then wiping the face, and then the hands. And the hands, only the palms. Naam. The hands, only the palms. يَمْسَحُ بِهِمَا جَمِيعَ وَجْهِهِ. The person wipes their whole face with their palm. وَجَمِيعَ كَفَّيْهِ, and his whole hand. Up to this point. So, and then the whole, if there is sand, person blows it off. And then wipes the whole face. Exactly like you would do in wudu. Wipes the whole face, and then the hands. Just the wrist. From the wrist downwards. طيب. فإن ضرب مرتين, if he strikes it twice, فلا بأس. There's no problem, as that has been narrated in some ahadith. قال تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and now he mentions the evidence which we already mentioned, فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا. If you do not find water, then use clean earth to perform tayammum. فامسحوا, wipe بوجوهكم, your faces, وأيديكم منه, and your hands. So that's the reason why we do the hands, face first and then the hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the face before the hands. طيب. Also in the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu, in which the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أعطيت خمسا لم يعطهن أحد قبلي, I have been given 5 that none of the Anbiya before me were given. From them نصرت برعب مسيرة شهر. From the 5 things that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was given, that no other messenger before him was given, in this hadith, نصرت بمسيرة, he was given from the 5 things. Is the first one that fear would be, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would strike fear into the hearts of the enemy to the extent that they would flee from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam the distance of a month. The distance that you can reach in a month, they would flee that much, running away from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his army. That was one of the things. وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. And the masjid and the earth has been made for me masjidah, and somewhere that I can pray for me and my ummah. Anywhere that we find that is clean, then we can perform salah. A musalla has been made a musalla. Anywhere that a person finds himself, then he can pray, excluding the places that we mentioned last time where a person cannot pray. No, it was in another lesson. There are certain places that we shall see in Kitab al-Salah that a person cannot pray. So, excluding these places, everywhere else is permissible to, or it's permissible to pray everywhere else. نعم وجعلت لي الأرض مسجدا وطهورا. And also, it has been made a purification, something which is tahir, pure. Meaning a person can perform tayammum with turab, dust, mud, clean earth, as long as it is clean. طيب. فأيما رجل, so for any man من أمتي, that is from my ummah, any man from my ummah, just as a side benefit, anywhere you find in the ahadith where the Messenger ﷺ uses the word rajul, it is not specific to men, unless there's a dalil showing that it's specific to men. So for example, we can't say, in this hadith the Messenger ﷺ says, فَأَيُّمَا رَجُلٍ مِنْ أُمَّتِي, for any man in this ummah, in my ummah, أَدْرَكَتْهُ الصَّلَاةِ, that salah comes, or the time for salah has come, فَلْيُصَلِّ, let him pray. We can't say that's specific to the men, because the word that is being mentioned is rajul. And we can't say for the woman she doesn't have to pray or she cannot perform tayammum in this method. Lakin if there's a qarina, or if there's some sort of supporting evidence to state that it's specifically for the men or specifically for the women, then you can say it's specifically for whichever gender the verse mentions. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الرجال قوامون على النساء, right? الرجال and النساء have been mentioned. So because الرجال has been mentioned and النساء has been mentioned, then the verse talks about men and women, different ruling for this and that. Like in these sort of a hadith where you find the rajul, then it is specific to, it is general for the men and the women. So the Messenger ﷺ says, wherever you may be, and salah, if the time of salah comes, pray wherever you are. So if you're in a certain location and the time of salah is leaving or finishing, you shouldn't wait for just to get to the masjid. You shouldn't say, I'm going to reach the masjid, or I'm going to delay my salah because I'm not in a masjid. Like anywhere you wish. Parks, the street, anywhere that you feel is safe to pray without causing an obstruction, that you can pray. And that's from the khasa'is, from the characteristics, specific characteristics of the Messenger ﷺ. Then the Messenger ﷺ said, وَحِلَّتْ لِي الْغَنَائِمُ وَلَمْ تَحِلَّ لِأَحَدٍ مِنْ قَبْلِي. Or كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. And the ghanaim, or the ghanima is that which a person finds, or the army finds, or takes from the enemy. The ghanaim, for example, if there's jihad, and then the enemy is defeated, and they leave behind wealth, that wealth is called ghanima. Spoils of war, jazakallah khair. Spoils of war. In the previous nations, they were commanded, or they used to be commanded, to gather all of the spoils of war and burn it. Lakin, for this ummah, it has been made halal. وَأُعْطِيتُ الشَّفَاعَةِ, and I have been given the shafa'a. The shafa'a in which, when all of the nations are in the mahshar, on the ground for Yawm al-Qiyamah, and they go to different messengers, they go to Adam, Nuh, Isa, Musa, and then they'll come to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he will say, Ana laha, verily it is for me. And then he will perform shafa'ah al-udma. طيب, على كل حال, that hadith is a proof for tayammum, and performing and making it permissible to perform tayammum wherever a person finds himself, whether it's dust, whether it's grass, mud, wherever a person finds himself, they can perform tayammum. That's the end of tayammum. That's the end of Babu Tayammum. The chapter, the Shaykh, the next few lines that the Shaykh is mentioning is with regards to the person who is a muhdith, or the person who isn't on purification, who is either on major or minor impurity. What can he do or she do, and what can they not do? And in this chapter, in these next few lines, he'll say that the person that is on minor hadith cannot pray, or the person that's on minor and janaba cannot stay in the masjid, for example. Now, for this chapter, or for these words, for these next lines, Allahu A'lam, but maybe it would have been better if the Shaykh would have delayed it to the end of the next chapter, the end of the menses, so that he completes all of the ahkam, wudu, tayammum, hayd and so on, And then at the end of Kitab al-Tahara mentioned that what is wajib upon every single one of them as an individual and what is not permissible for them. على كل حال رحمة الله عليه, his tariqah is better. ومن عليه حدث أصغر ومن عليه حدث أصغر, the one that has minor impurity. So he starts with the person who has minor impurity, then major impurity, then major impurity, then minor impurity, then the major impurity. ومن عليه حدث أصغر, the person who is on minor impurity, means this person requires what? A ghusl or wudu? Wudu. لم يحل, is not permissible for him له أن يصلي. ليس أن يصلي, it's not permissible for him to pray. Due to the hadith, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept the prayer of one of you who is muhdith, who is in impurity, as long as he doesn't perform wudu, and he doesn't accept the salah or the prayer of the person who is on minor impurity. ولا أن يطوف بالبيت, ولا أن يطوف بالبيت, and it's not permissible for him to perform tawaf بالبيت, in the house. What house? Mecca. And that's the only place that a Muslim is allowed to perform tawaf. The only place. Not in Karbala, not in a grave, not in Wali Fulan, not in his grave, not in any other grave, not in the grave of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Only the Kaaba, or the Kaaba is the only place that the Muslim, the believer, is allowed to perform tawaf in. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger commanded us to perform tawaf around it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger commanded us to perform tawaf around it. وَلَا أَن يَطُوفَ بِالْبَيْتِ. So the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi, as a lot of scholars have mentioned as well before him, they say that tawaf or wudu or tahara is wajib for the person that wants to perform tawaf. طيب. There's another opinion as well that is not a condition. It is not a condition that a person performs tawaf while being on purification. So if a person, for example, performs the circulations, he's on the 5th one and then he breaks his wudu, he's not required to go out, he can just carry on. That's also another opinion, which is a strong opinion as well. وَلَا يَمُسَّ الْمَصْحَفِ. The third thing that the Shaykh says is not permissible for him to do is that it's not permissible for him to wipe for the person who is on minor impurity to touch the mushaf. The person who is on minor impurity to touch the mushaf. That is an opinion, and they use it as an evidence. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ لَا يَمَسُّهُ إِلَّا الْمُطَهَّرُونَ. Only the pure ones shall touch it. That's one opinion. The other opinion is that it's permissible for a person to touch the mushaf, to read from the mushaf if they are not on tahara, but obviously it's better for him or for her to perform wudu. And they say this verse, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, it's talking about the angels. إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون, اللوح المحفوظ, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, meaning the angels, only the angels will touch it. So they say that this verse isn't an evidence for the person who's on minor impurity to not touch the kitab. There's another hadith, لا يمسه إلا طاهر. Some of the scholars say that that is weak, or it's a weak hadith, and they say even if it was an authentic hadith, then لا يمسه إلا طاهر أي إلا مؤمن. Only the mu'min can touch it. And obviously if you look at the reason why the Messenger ﷺ said that is because he was sending some of the companions to Yemen, and in Yemen there were non-Muslims. Therefore to say لا يمسه إلا طاهر أي مؤمن, they say, يعني the mu'min. طيب. ويزيد من عليه حدث أكبر. So these three things, according to the Shaykh, they're not permissible to do if a person is on what? Major or minor impurity? Minor impurity. ويزيد من عليه حدث أكبر. And the one that has حدث أكبر, major impurity, cannot do these three things that we've mentioned and the coming. أنه لا يقرأ شيئا من القرآن. That he cannot read anything from the Quran. So the person who's on major impurity cannot do the three that we mentioned, and obviously we mentioned the khilaf in each one, the last three, and they cannot read anything from the Quran. They cannot read anything from the Quran. Lakin the stronger opinion is there's no dalil sahih, precise dalil prohibiting the person who's on janaba to preventing him from reading the Quran. But obviously it's better for him to perform ghusl and then read the Quran. As for the hadith, لا تقرأ الحائض, the haid doesn't read, ولا الجنوب, nor the person who's on janaba, شيئا من القرآن, anything from the Quran, then that's a hadith which is da'if and it can't be used as an evidence. Also, it has been narrated by some of the companions, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, some of the tabi'in, Ikrimah, Sa'id ibn Musayyib, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, that is permissible for the person to read Quran even while he's on janaba. Because the asl is, bara al-asliya they say, the asl is that it's permissible for a person to read the Quran when he's on janaba, unless there comes a dalil preventing him from doing so. And there isn't a direct hadith or verse preventing the person who's on janaba from reading the Quran. So don't get confused between these two issues. There's touching the mushaf and reading the Quran. Two different things. So touching the mushaf that we see added, the normal kitabs that we have, that's one issue. And we've already discussed it. Like in this one specific to the person reading. So the Shaykh saying if a person is on janaba, they may not even read anything from the Quran. طيب. And we obviously mentioned the stronger opinion on that as well. وَلَا يَلْبَثُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. Afwan, just before we go on, the person who's on major impurity can be what? A person who's on janaba or a woman who's on haid, sah? Or nifas. Likewise, for the woman who's on nifas or haid, there's no clear-cut dalil preventing her from reading the Quran. Preventing her from reading the Quran. Likewise, there's no clear-cut dalil preventing her from touching the mushaf. Nah. So even when reading the Quran, they're allowed to read from their hearts, or if they want to touch the kitab, because they're different to the person who's on janaba. The person who's on janaba can easily perform ghusl, and his impurity is lifted, right? Like in a person who's going through menses, then it's not possible for them, it's not as easy as performing ghusl and then becoming pure, then becoming tahir. And the fact that it's permissible for the haid to read the Quran is the opinion of a lot of scholars. It's the opinion of the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, Riwayah Imam Ahmed, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Qayyim, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'a wa rahmatullahi alayhim ajma'een. The Shaykh says, وَلَا يَلْبَثُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ بِلَا وُضُوء. طيب. The person who's on janaba shouldn't stay in the masjid. The person who's in janaba, who's on janaba, shouldn't perform, or shouldn't stay in the masjid bila wudu, unless they have wudu. And the dalil for that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqrabu as-salata wa antum sukara. O you who believe, do not pray the salah, come near the salah while you are drunk. Hatta ta'lamu ma taqulun. Wa la junuban illa 'abir as-sabil. And do not come near the salah, meaning do not come near the masajid, if you are on janaba. Illa 'abir as-sabil, except for a person who's just merely going past the masjid. going through the masjid. طيب. That evidence, or this verse is an evidence for a person who's on janaba not staying in the masjid. As for the permissibility of him performing wudu to stay in the masjid, that has been narrated by many of the companions. Been narrated by some of the companions whereby they used to perform wudu and then stay in the masjid. So the wudu lessens the impurity of the janaba. Nah. So the fact that the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim used to perform wudu and stay in the masjid shows that it is permissible to do so. And permissible to stay in the masjid while having janaba, like only after performing wudu. As for the as for the haid, it's permissible for her to be in the masjid as long as the masjid will not become dirty. And that's not something that can happen easily today. Therefore, the menstruated woman or a person who's going through damul nifas, postnatal bleeding, can enter the masjid. And you can use it as an evidence that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Aisha, "If'ali ma yaf'alu al-hajj." During the Hajj of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Aisha was with him, she required, or her menses came just as they were about to perform Hajj, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do everything that the Hajj does, that the person performing Hajj does. غير أن لا تطوفي بالبيت حتى تطهري, except doing tawaf around the house." So do everything that the Hajj or the person performing Hajj does, except for doing tawaf around the house, يعني around the Kaaba. So the Prophet made permissible. How many things did he prohibit her from doing so? He prohibited her from doing tawaf, right? The Hajj, the person that does Hajj or is performing Hajj, does he not stay in the masjid? He stays in the masjid. And the Messenger in this hadith said to her, do everything that the Hajj does, except performing tawaf. So the Hajj performs tawaf, the person performing Hajj, he performs tawaf, but you don't do tawaf. Like, you do everything else that he does. And from these things that they do is stay in the masjid. So it's permissible for the menstruated woman to go into the masjid, to stay in the masjid, and that is the asl, and there's no evidence prohibiting her from doing so. Rather, there's evidence to show that she's allowed to do so. There was a time, at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a woman who used to live in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Prophet's masjid. There's a woman who used to live in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's masjid. She had a certain corner in the masjid where she used to live. طيب. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam never prevented her from doing so. And from the nature of women that they, during a certain time of the month, they experience the monthly cycle. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam never prohibited her from doing so. So the fact that he never prohibited her from doing so shows that it's permissible for them to stay in the masjid. طيب. The Shaykh says, وَتَزِيدُ الْحَائِدُ. As for the haid, so the first person he was on was what? The one on minor impurity. Then the junub, the person who's on janaba. Now the Shaykh is talking about the haid. So the Shaykh is saying everything that we've discussed, the haid cannot do. Such as what? What's happened? Have you fallen asleep? Touching the Quran, according to the Shaykh. Doing tawaf. Staying in the masjid. Not reading anything from the Quran, according to the Shaykh, طبعا. And praying salah. The Shaykh is saying all of that, plus what we are about to mention. Plus what we are about to mention. أنها لا تصوم. It is not permissible for her to fast. and it's haram for her to fast. And we already took the evidence, we already studied the evidence last week. Like in the person who's on minor impurity, does he have to fast? What about the one on janaba? Huh? The one on janaba, you sure? He has to fast, صح. Like in the woman on haid or nifas cannot fast. وَلَا يَحِلُّ وَطْءُهَا, and it's not permissible to have intercourse with her. It's not permissible to have intercourse with the menstruating woman. As for what is permissible, then we discussed it earlier on when we were talking about ghusl. The Messenger ﷺ said, "Isna'u kulla shay illa nikah." Do everything except for nikah, يعني الجماع, except for jima'. وَلَا طَلَاقُهَا, and it's not permissible to divorce her while she's going through her menses. While she's going through her menses, it's not permissible for her to be divorced. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, divorced his wife at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam while she was on her haid. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam got angry and commanded him to take her back. So it's impermissible for the man to divorce his wife while she is on haid. It's impermissible for him to say or to give her talaq. Like, does the talaq take place if he does say it? There's a difference, huh? If he does say it, it's not permissible for him to do so. Like, if he does divorce her, does that divorce happen? And is it considered a talaq or not? Majority of the scholars are of the opinion that it does take place, and she is divorced. And that is the stronger opinion. And it's clear in the hadith of Ibn Umar where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded him, Ibn Umar said, command him to take her back. Raj'a. And raj'a only takes place if a person divorces his wife. If it didn't take place, then the Messenger would have commanded him to take her back, because she's already his wife. Like in fact, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded her to take her back, shows that the divorce takes place. Ala kulli hal, that is to be discussed in Kitab al-Nikah or Kitab al-Talaq. Inshallah, if Allah permits, we'll have a dawah on that. Lakin, we'll delay that up until that point, inshallah. Tayyib. That's the end of the chapter. Next week we'll start from, or 2 weeks time we'll start from Bab al-Hayd, and that is the end of Kitab al-Tahara. That is the end of Kitab al-Tahara. This chapter, Bab al-Hayd, is the last chapter in Kitab al-Tahara. Once we can finish Kitab al-Tahara, inshallah, we'll start Kitab as-Salah. Kitab al-Salah. طبعا we'll have a test at the end of Kitab al-Hayd, but it's going to be a short test, inshallah, because it only encompasses how many chapters? Ghusl, Tayamum and Hayd. But there'll be some questions from طبعا the previous lessons. Like in the mark will be out of about 28 or 30. طيب. And the homework that I gave you was out of how many did I say? 5 or 7, right? If we say 5, that's 35 ala kulli hal. The other exam was from out of how many? 65 altogether. The research, the mini test, and the midway test. 65, right? Plus 35, how many? 100, صح? That's 100 marks, Kitab al-Tahara. And inshallah we'll complete Kitab al-Tahara in 2 weeks' time. Any questions? تفضل أخي. If she's on her haid, not raj'ah. If she's on her haid, she's going through her menses, it's not permissible to divorce her. But if a person does divorce her, then that is counted as a divorce. And a man's allowed to divorce his wife how many times? 3 times. 2 times and then he can still take her back. After the 3rd time he can't take her back, sah? It is included as a talqa, they call it. It's included as a divorce. So with that specific woman, he only has 2 more. So it's not permissible to divorce them while they're going through their periods. Like, if it does happen that a person does divorce his wife, then that divorce takes place.
But they can't wipe over it because otherwise they'll be harmed. They can wipe the other parts. Do they perform Tayamum?
No. Where it's a small amount that can't be wiped, they just wipe over. Not wipe over the actual plaster, they can wipe around it. For example, if the plaster is on this part, they wipe this part, wipe that part with the water as normal. Like, because it's such a small amount, you can't say I'm going to perform Tayamum because of that plaster, because it's such a small amount. Yeah, they're here. Or are they these ones, right? When choosing the legislated time to start wiping over the socks, is it permissible, is it okay to change your opinion from time to time? I.e., on one occasion, start the 24 hours from when you perform wudu, when wudu was made, the next time from when you put your socks on. Like, it's not permissible. You can't, with the issues of fiqh, in any of the issues of fiqh, a person should always take the stronger opinion first and foremost. He can only take the opinion which he thinks is the stronger opinion. A person can only take and adopt the opinion which he believes is the stronger opinion. Obviously he's only doing so, or she's only doing so, because they believe the evidence is with this specific opinion, right? Therefore you can't leave the evidence for any other reason. You need to always stick by the dalil. If the dalil says or points towards opinion A, you may not move over to opinion B just for the sake of moving opinions. And even the scholars even mention that if a person, when there's difference of opinion in the madhahib, he can't just say, for this opinion the Hanabila are, they're mutashaddidun, they're a bit harsh, so I'm going to take the opinion of the Hanafiya. But in this opinion, in the Hanafi madhab, they're a bit harsh as well, so I'm going to take the opinion of the Hanabila. The person cannot go from opinion to opinion. Whatever opinion he deems is the strongest opinion, he should act according to it. However, if a person, for example now, the nullifying of wudu, we said that the stronger opinion is that if a person eats camel's meat, it nullifies his wudu, sah? Okay. If you're a Hanbali, or if you're a person that knows that these are hadith are authentic and that it nullifies the wudu, if you have camel's meat, it's haram for you to pray unless you perform wudu. Sah? If you know that camel's meat nullifies wudu, it's wajib upon you to what? Perform wudu if you have camel's meat, right? طيب. So you can't pray on your own, nor can you lead a group of people. Why? Because technically you're on minor impurity. You're not on wudu. However, if you're praying with a Shafi'i, a person who's on the Shafi'i methodology or madhab, and he genuinely believes that the stronger opinion is that camel's meat doesn't nullify a person's wudu, for them, their salah is what? Valid. Can you pray behind that person, even though you know that he's had camel's meat, and that his salah is nullified, his wudu? If you believe that camel's meat nullifies wudu, can you pray behind the Shafi'i who genuinely believes that camel's meat doesn't nullify wudu? No. From the brothers, no. Sisters? Huh? Can you pray behind that person? Huh? Naam, you can pray behind that person. Naam, as you said, Mustafa as well, jazakallah. Why? Because he's on wudu. Huh? Because he's on wudu. According to him, the stronger opinion is that it doesn't nullify wudu. So there's a difference between that issue and between jumping opinions to see whichever one suits the person.
Otherwise we'd have what we had in Makkah, sir.
Otherwise we'd have what we had in Makkah. 4 jama'as in one time. Not long ago, 300 years ago or so. Yeah. The Hanabila would pray one time, the Malikiyya would pray in that corner one time, the Shafi'iyya in that corner one time, and the Hanafi in that corner, their own jama'ah.
There's actually an old picture, you can actually see their camps.
Sure. And this is the problem. This is the problem with partisanship, Hizbiyah. Even Hizbiyah, or having partisanship to your madhab, is haram. If you look in the books of fiqh, sometimes they ask each other, some of the Hanafiya, for example, in their books, can a Hanafi man marry a Shafi'i woman? Shada. As if she's a kafirah. That's partisanship. That's what causes Hizbiyah. It causes a person to have allegiance towards the person who's in his hizb and distance the person who isn't from his hizb. And that's why Hizbiyah is haram, partisanship. We only have partisanship to the Kitab and the Sunnah according to the understanding of the companions and the Salaf. Going back to the bab of things which are najis, on the bab of utensils and the bab of utensils, I'm not challenging the Shaykh's order, but the hadith mentions that if the dog's saliva goes into the bowl of the Muslim, then it is a must, then it must be washed, not the clothes of an individual, of the body. Can the hadith be included as evidence for being able to use the utensils? Can the hadith be included as evidence for not being able to use the utensils unless it is cleaned? Allahu A'lam. If I understand correctly, the questioner is saying that if a dog's saliva, or if a dog licks a certain utensil or certain pot, then doesn't it become impermissible to perform wudu from that utensil? Is that the question?
The question is also in the hadith specifically mentions that the saliva of the dog goes into the bowl, but the hadith is mentioned in Bab al-Tahara, not Bab al-Ali. So couldn't you use that as evidence in Bab al-Ali?
And the Shaykh mentioned it in what? Najasat? The Shaykh mentioned it in Bab al-Najasat.
Yeah.
Can it not be used in Bab al-Aniya?
Yeah. Because it specifically says,
The Shaykh is right. He puts it in the correct chapter. Because in this chapter, Bab al-Najasat, he's talking about different types of najasat and how to purify them, sah? And that is in najasa, and he discusses how to purify it. It can be put into the chapter of utensils, like in the closer one in terms of logically speaking, it's closer to putting it into the chapter of the utensils, in chapter of najasat, since it is a najasa and the Shaykh talks about how to clean it, then putting it into the chapter of utensils. The reason is because even if you have a utensil, a big pot, and the dog licks it, we have been commanded to wash the 7 times. Lakin is the water najis? Is the water filthy? La. The bowl is filthy. The bowl is what we have to wash. Lakin the water inside it, we have to go back to the chapter of water. If a najasa touches the water and it changes it, then it's impermissible to perform wudu. Like if a tiny bit of najasa touches the water, then it doesn't make it dirty. As for whether a person would use it or not, that's something else. For example, if like now, 1 litre of water, if a person was to put a spoonful of urine in there, or even a minute amount, does it make it najis? No, it doesn't make it najis. Why? Because when you look at it, it's water. It's considered water. La, that's something else. Whether you would drink it or not, it is something else. Lakin, is it pure or not? That's a totally different question. There's B. Also, would it be correct to state that since the utensil is specifically mentioned only, that one can touch a dog without having to wash 8 times? Yeah, the dog. Only the saliva of the dog, the tongue of the dog is najasa, or is najis. Only the najasa. Only the saliva of the dog is najis. Only the saliva of the dog is najis. If a dog rubs past you, doesn't mean you have to wash your garment 7 times or you wash anything else 7 times. It's only the licking of the dog that causes you to wash, or the tongue or his saliva that causes you to wash 7 times. Go on.
Can someone please ask? Okay, if a person is going back home before salawat, if a person is going back home before salat time, if the person is going back home before salat time is over, he should delay his salah and do wudu when he is home, when he gets home. Why shouldn't he do Tayamum and perform the salah, given that there is no way of knowing he will make it home?
I never said you can't perform Tayamum.
No, you know, he was given that method of a person who said that he knows he's getting home, he might as well delay it 1 hour knowing that he won't exceed the time, so then he could tahsil al-mat. He's saying that the Baba said knowing if he would, given that there is no way of knowing he'll make it home.
He can do so. He can do so. Like I believe when we were talking about that, I said which is better. Sah? Which is better? I didn't say it's not permissible for him to pray Tayammum. Just like the person, like that traveling we mentioned, na'am. So we mentioned the time of the salah when we were talking about, if a person is to pray sitting down, we can't say it's not permissible for you to pray sitting down. Like we only mentioned it may be better to delay the salah so that you can pray the salah with its conditions, with its requirements, and can pray a complete salah.
So I understand. Also, if a person is traveling and does Tayammum and combines 2 salah but reaches his destination before the time of the second salah, should he take wudu and pray the second salah, or he doesn't need to?
Did you guys understand the question? I want the answer from you.
Basically, they prayed already, he combined his...
1 second, repeat the question and the answer. You know the answer.
If a person is traveling and does Tayammum and combines 2 salah but reaches his destination before the time of the second salah, should he take wudu, pray the second salah, or he doesn't need to, or does he not need to?
What should he do?
He doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to what?
He doesn't need
You forgot the question. How can you give a fatwa if you forgot the question?
I had in my mind a minute ago. Repeat the question again, please.
La, don't repeat the question. If you ask the awam, when they ask you, the common people, when they ask you a question, if they have to repeat themselves certain time, they say, they get angry, they might just leave you. Tayyib, what's the answer? Tayyib. Are you asking me a question? No, the question, answer this question. Explain why he wouldn't need to. If you say he needs to repeat it, explain.
Because he's already combined and used the substitution for the time. So he enters back. The only thing that's lifted is the Tayamum. That's when he put the Salah. He's combined it.
Sah. Very good. Elaborate more. Why wouldn't he need to firstly, you're in ijma' that he doesn't need to repeat the salah, sah? That he doesn't need to repeat the second salah that he prayed. Asr, even though he's back at the time of Asr, right? The second salah.
It doesn't mention what salah exactly.
But why wouldn't he need to? You've mentioned a lot. Someone to
He was a traveler at the time.
Tayyib.
So he's taking the ease that Allah gave him.
Hmm?
The Prophet he was given two choices or something more.
He would take the easier one.
He would take the easy way out.
That's not here though. That's not to be found in this situation. There's nothing that's easier, or there's nothing that's harder. There's no two options.
He took the concession that he took it because he was traveling, so he combined the prayer. He didn't just out of the blue just
Tayyib.
combine the prayers.
Okay.
He decided to combine the prayers.
Any question?
Basically, if you're saying that you can't do it, then that means you're saying that his salah is not valid, basically.
Not necessarily. Does he have to perform it again is the question. Not necessarily. Anyone from anything else? It's really simple. There's one principle that will combine the whole, give you the whole fatwa. Excellent. Okay. He done it to the best of his ability. Sahih. Excellent. Everything you're saying is correct. Any question any answer from the sisters?
He had the right to do between his two salahs and it's valid because he was traveling.
صح exactly. If a person performed wudu with water and he combined two salawat, two prayers, when he goes back home at the time of the second prayer, Asr for example, does he need to repeat the salah if he used water? Sah? He wouldn't need to perform salah. Tayamum is what? It's a substitute for water. التراب يقوم مقام الماء. Write that as a principle, and it's on the matan like that. Anything that you would use tayammum for, anything that you would use wudu for, you can use tayammum for. So his answer is not. He doesn't need to repeat the salah. For example, if a person wants to pray, if a person performs wudu, performs wudu, and he prays salatul duha with water, pray wudu, salatul duha, and then the time of dhuhr comes, he can pray that same wudu, he can pray dhuhr with that same wudu, sah? Likewise tayammum, exactly the same, like for like. Nah. Sometimes memorizing a qa'idah or a principle gives you the answer to various different questions. Like all of your answers were correct, 100%. Any other questions?
No questions here.
No other questions. Tayyib.
Is it true that women and men both have the same ajr when they pray salah? So when a man prays jama'ah, so when a man prays jama'ah and when women pray jama'ah, for example, at home.
No, she'll get the same jama'ah, same reward as the man. She'll get the same reward as the man. And because when the Messenger ﷺ was mentioning the hadith, such as Salatul Jama'ah tafdulu Salatul Fajr bi 27 or kida, كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, the salah of the jama'ah is more virtuous than the salah of the person praying alone by 27 levels, in another hadith 25 levels. What is being referred to is the salah, not the person who is praying. So the reward for the woman who prays jama'ah is also there for her, and the same reward. There's only one time where the scholars say that it's not good for the woman to go to the masjid, that's if there's a fitna. But if there isn't a fitna, and she isn't a fitna for herself or for other people, then it's permissible for her to go to the masjid and pray in the jama'ah and get the same reward as the men.
So even if she's at home, not in the masjid, so if she prays jama'ah at home and the man imam with sisters and a brother is praying in the masjid, do they have the same reward because they're still praying?
Yani women praying jama'ah in a house
Yeah.
and the men praying jama'ah in the masjid. No, it's not the same. The masajid are the beauty of Allah, the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that jama'ah that is being referred to, that has this virtue, is the jama'ah in the masjid. The jama'ah in the masjid. However, which is better for the woman? That question can be reversed. Better for her to pray in her home. So she may get the reward of the person that's praying in the masjid while she's at home. And in general, for a person to implement the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is more virtuous and better than gaining hundreds and hundreds of rewards, hasanat. For a person getting a lot of ajr for it. Let's finish this. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Well, you introduced this.